and welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, May 2nd. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing really well.
Okay, so we are officially, I guess, open for business, but as I was telling these guys earlier, before we went live, I am having internet connection issues right now. So the stream may hesitate for a couple seconds every so often. You may lose me hearing me wise. Called Comcast to come out and look at it, and they're not going to do that for a while. So not sure how this is going to go or how well it's going to go, but we're going to give it a whirl. So this week we have been, or some of us have been. Again, if you haven't been here for a week or two, you may not have heard. You may have heard that we changed the distro challenge up to where it's not going to be a regimented thing, and we're not going to go through everybody and the whole list and spend an hour and a half on each distro. But it is open for discussion, and we are following a semi-schedule with the Ubuntu releases. And this past week, we have been trying Ubuntu 2004, which was a fantastic release. And we have Martin Wimpers here to talk about it. That's awesome for the second week in a row, right?
I know. That's dedication right there.
That's dedication because it's very late for him, and it'll be there very late for him as the night goes on. So I appreciate it, man. All right. Who wants to start it out? Has anybody been trying Ubuntu 2004? Wow, a lot of hands. Okay.
We're talking Ubuntu proper, correct?
Yes,
That's
Ubuntu
the one,
proper. Yeah. Yes. All right. Chicken, start it out, dude.
Well, since you guys love me so much, Ubuntu 2004 has been really great for me. I started using it when the betas were coming out, and I think one of the things that really, really struck me as cool was, the Yaru theme is really, really, really pretty, including my phone. So that was a thing before, but it didn't always work for me, and now it works flawlessly, which I'm really, really pleased about. And also, because it's running the 5.4 kernels, I can use my new AMD graphics card with it, which means I get all that fun gaming performance, which is fantastic. And I think beyond that, what was really cool to see is because throughout the whole testing week, there was a whole lot of feedback that I think started flowing through, and I kind of got to see a lot of how other people use their machines. So I started experimenting with my install and changing up like different extensions that I used, and it's been absolutely solid. This release of GNOME has been great, but the Ubuntu dock is really nice to have because I know that I have some friends that use Ubuntu, and they always want to be able to see the dock. So the fact that that's there means you're not searching for it behind the menu like it is in traditional GNOME. So I don't know. I think all in all, it's just really, really solid, and it's also super pretty, which definitely helps because I'm a simple person.
Very nice. All right. So before we go any further, did chicken cut out for everybody in Zoom for a minute, or was it just on my end?
Just you.
Okay. So the people that are watching in the YouTube stream will hear it cut out because obviously it's coming in just from my end. So I'm sorry to the people out there in YouTube land that you may have intermittent times where it cuts out, but we're going to enjoy ourselves by talking, and everybody here is going to do themselves without the interruptions. So. All right, who wants to go next?
I guess I'll go next.
Do it.
So same as before, it's the Yaru theme it's like one of the best new themes that I've seen in a long time. And you put that on top of the Yaru Dark, makes it even better. I love it. And I have to say that I feel that Ubuntu proper has the best dock out there for all of the other distros with GNOME. I just love how it works, and it really just makes it for me. It runs so smooth. I love the animations on it. It's just how when you put it on auto hide, how it just slides away. I just think it's great. And it's this is actually the first Ubuntu since before Unity that I actually installed on one of my computers and left on there. And I can really see it staying on there for a long time.
Now that's a compliment. All right. Hey, you guys jump in anytime you want to.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Rocco.
Do it, man. Do it. Just jump in.
Yep, I've installed Ubuntu proper on my main system, so I thought I'd put it on there and run it for a while. Now, I did have some issues with it regarding booting. So I have filed a bug in Launchpad. Well, I didn't file a bug. I looked for the bug that may have been already there, which there was, put my 2 cents worth in. I'm having a problem, whereas after install, the graphical little arrow spins around and it just hangs there. But I did find that after I press the F8 button, the scrolling text comes up. And then once I got the scrolling text, it went to the login screen. So I disabled auto splash in the grub configuration file, and that's been fixed. It's just that I've got the scrolling text on startup. So I don't know what that's all about, but I definitely have put my 2 cents worth in. But so far on Ubuntu proper, all running really well. Have to say, using Blender, which is my video editor of choice, seems to be a lot more smoother than what it has been in Ubuntu. So I'm pretty happy about that. And also, I took Adam Grubb's advice and I've put in place the bind mounts. So that's another thing I've done, which helps snaps read the system. So I'm pretty happy with it. Otherwise, you can't get hold of all your stuff in your home folders if you don't have bind mounts, because Symlinks don't allow it to. So, but with Ubuntu itself, I've only changed one thing. I've put the Quokka theme in as my top bar there on the Windows, and pretty much that's it. I've left the Yarrow icons there, which are very nice. And so far running really well, couldn't be happier. So hopefully all stays that way.
Very nice. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, Tony, go you first.
Okay, thank you. I tried it on the testing laptop. It works fine. Don't seem to have any problems with it. It's very fluid and very nice looking. I love the icon themes and things that they've done with it. The only thing I found with it was, and I think it's a known problem that's not been fixed yet, when you go into the store, a lot of the icons in there don't show. But I think somebody said last week that that was a problem they'd fixed, but they didn't get the icons done. But apart from that, it all seems to work okay. No problems.
I actually, if I could interject here, I think
Sure.
those icons that aren't showing are the ones from the Ubuntu repositories. I've found all the snap icons are showing, but all the apps from the Ubuntu repositories are showing just a generic icon.
Yeah, that's
which
it.
is what I found.
Yeah,
right.
It's an issue in what's called AppStream, which is the data that the apps in the archive use to present their metadata, screenshots and descriptions or whatever. And it's a bug that we introduced into the back end of that, so we're aware. Yeah.
So it's a feature then.
At the moment, it's a feature.
That's a great way to look at it, Tony.
Okay.
I love it.
Big Pod's got his hand up. So
I tried the new Ubuntu GNOME one, but I didn't install it on my laptop. I installed it on VM because my laptop got a better one, the Mate one, and it works. Both of them work quite fine, but I gotta say, Yarrow has one problem, and it's a beautiful theme with one huge error. That Nautilus icon is just garbage ugly. First thing I do, I removed it from the theme. and set it up so that it's a normal folder icon because it's so ugly. Otherwise, works fine. Had a few problems along the way, but those get fixed due to amazing support by community and Canonical people.
All right, Daniel, you wanted to get in?
Yeah. So I tried it on my my testing, well, my testing laptop that I try everything on. I think I've come up with two things. First of all, I really like Ubuntu, so it was one of the things I've come to the conclusion that this laptop that I have, which is an older ThinkPad like workstation, and it's got the hybrid graphics, but the way that this particular model of ThinkPad does hybrid graphics just terrorizes most Linux distros, because in the BIOS, you can either set it to standard, which is supposed to be hybrid, or dedicated GPU, which is performance mode. But when you start digging back into it, really all that does, it's weird because even if you switch those modes, the controllers for the onboard video displays are still always run by the internal Intel processor. The only thing that runs the external displays when you put it in performance mode for the NVIDIA card is when you snap it into a dock. So whenever I have any kind of distro that tries to do any kind of loading with hybrid versus Intel only versus performance only, it'll only let me pick hybrid or Intel only. Like if I pick NVIDIA only, whenever I reboot, it'll say the icon, it'll say that it's set to NVIDIA only. I'll reboot and it'll come back in and it'll be hybrid every time, every distro, doesn't matter. So, and the other thing that so along with that is when I did that and left it in hybrid mode and installed both the Snap for OBS and the one out of the the Ubuntu repository, it would fail on the GPU. So I'd fire up OBS and it would say that it failed on my video card. It either the wrong drivers or can't find it. But if I went back to Intel mode and came back in, no problem. OBS fired up right away. But I don't think that's necessarily an Ubuntu only problem. I think that's a problem with the weird configuration, because I did some digging on that pretty extensively this week, and it's this one configuration of ThinkPad that does this weird thing with it says it's Optimus and it's hybrid graphics, but it's some weird version of it. So other than that, I like it. I really want to try it on an SSD because my other SSD is being used for something else. So I threw it on an old spinning Rust drive that I had, and it boots fast, but it's slow. Like I now notice the difference between running something off of an SSD versus an older drive. But I really like it. I go in and I usually modify the keyboard shortcuts so that they match up to what I have in Pop OS because it's GNOME, and I've already got those set pretty nice. The only other thing that I found is that I've got it set to the Yaru dark theme. So everything's dark except like menus. Like if I right click menu on the desktop, it's still white. The menu is still white. So I'm still trying to figure out where that setting is. Like I must not be setting something right. But other than that, I installed a bunch of software. I was running a bunch of stuff. So I think it's cool. It's, you need the user shell theme. You need to change the user shell theme to get the context menus dark.
Oh, is that what that? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. All right. So, so we're going to continue the conversation, but the stream has died quite a few times since we started. Okay. And there's nothing I can do about it. There's absolutely nothing I can do about it. So
At
what
least
I'll,
you're recording.
I'm still recording, and it says I'm still streaming from OBS, but YouTube's not picking it up. So
I think it went to another link.
It did, and the second one died as well.
Oh,
because of my internet connection. So
Great.
what I'm just going to do is we're just going to continue on, I'll complete the recording, and then I will just upload it to YouTube. If people can watch during the show, that's great. And if they can't, then, you know, they'll just have to watch the video afterwards. So there you go. But, you know, me personally, I mean, I do care that it's not streaming, but I'm just going to enjoy being here and talking to you guys. So if you guys want to
just love
stay,
you
you're
that
more than
much.
welcome to stay, and we'll continue to talk. If you don't, then, you
I'm
know,
gonna
that's up to
stay.
you. See?
I'm not going anywhere.
So I'm gonna keep trying as we go through to continually like get it live, but we're just gonna keep going. So, Dave, sir, Dreaming Wolf, you have been showing off Ubuntu since you came in here, so I'm assuming that you want to talk about it.
Now, why would I want to do that? Actually, I actually also grabbed it on a disk and stuck it on my desktop, which is what I'm running my main system on right now, that I'm running Zoom through to show you Ubuntu on my laptop. So I really like it. It's running really well. Both times it took all my setup script, ran it without a hiccup. Everything, I've had one issue where a third-party app for my VPN has a dependency that for some reason doesn't like the new version that came with 2004 of Python requests. It doesn't recognize the updated version. So I went into the deb, yanked out that dependency, and it fired up fine, installed fine, fired up fine, and runs fine. That's the only problem I've come across. It looks great. It runs great. Tweaking it to make it look how I like is very different from just being able to go in and find all the settings in Plasma. I've got most of them set. There's a few things that I will probably just have to learn and get used to, because I want to actually give GNOME an honest try for a while. But it's been running really well. It looks gorgeous. The only thing I haven't been able to figure out is how to change the background picture in the GDM greeter, because everything I can find online, including the directions in the Arch Wiki and the scripts that they have there for doing it automatically, have not been able to get it straight, but it's probably something I'm doing wrong. So I will keep working on that. But for the time being, at least, I think I may stick with it on my main system as opposed to Kubuntu and just try that in a VM. So it's been interesting, and it's the best experience I've ever had with GNOME. I can honestly say that.
I think I have heard that so many times in the last week from so many different people that are not GNOME fans, that they have said that this is the best GNOME experience that they have experienced. So
I honestly have never really been a GNOME fan, but this makes it harder to ignore. I still prefer Plasma just because my brain works that way, and it's been that way for so long. But I didn't want to dump it off my system an hour after installing, like I have every other time I tried GNOME. And I that's pretty much the highest compliment I can give it. It has stayed on my system for days, where I don't think I've ever had a GNOME install last longer than an hour before.
Yep. Well, I did end up trying it, but I still ran into that fractional scaling bug. But that is the only bug that I ran into. Other than that,
there is an extension that you can.
Okay, so the audio cut out. So you guys continue talking.
Is the fractional scaling bug that you're referring to, Rocco, with NVIDIA drivers?
It is.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking at that. We started investigating that one last week.
But like I said, that's the only bug in it. And I don't really need fractional scaling. I was just taking a look at it because it was a new feature in there. So I usually run at 200%, and most people think that's terrible. But yeah, I usually do run at 200%.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you're on a desktop, maybe fractional scaling is not required, but certainly, 13-inch UHD laptops, that have got hybrid graphics, it's kind of a requirement for some people. So we want to get that right. So we'll get that fixed.
All right. Who wants to go next?
I have more to add if people still want to talk about Ubuntu.
Do it.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so I like you were saying with the user themes extension, it was good to see that put in there. What I actually did really like was that the appearance section was brought in, like similar to how Pop! OS does it. I'm not sure if that was taken from like Pop! OS's or like upstream GNOME has it in a weird repo somewhere or what, but I do know that it's really, really cool to see things like this implemented in Ubuntu because Ubuntu is like the big boy, it's like the distribution in regards to user base, in regards to, I think, what a lot of external companies reference in the commercial sphere, and to see really cool things like this that make the desktop experience really nice to use and configurable, because I mean dark themes are important to a lot of people, and some people it just makes their head not hurt and their eyes not bleed, and that's good. So to see things like that get pulled in on such a significant scale system, that's really, really nice. And I just feel like it stems from a lot of interest in what the community has been saying and listening to feedback. I feel like they could have easily just not done it, but they did, and that's something that I really, really appreciate. Even if I am a heretic and I don't use dark themes.
So I can explain some of the backstory there. So we had a design sprint in January, which included members of the Yaru team, the 4 principal members, in fact. And while we were there, we weren't just making Yaru look different. We were also getting the Yaru team's feedback on what they wanted to see, and they'd actually developed an extension that sits in the status bar to flip between the themes, because they'd got these 3 variations of Yaru, and they were wanting to include that by default in the distro. And our designers said, well, changing themes isn't something you do regularly. It shouldn't be presented up there always, because it's a thing that you would do, maybe once when you're setting the system up for the first time. So that was where our design team then sat down and came up with this design proposal for those, that switcher moving between the 3 variations of the theme in the appearance section. And to answer your question, no, it's not in upstream GNOME. That is a vendor patch that we're carrying in Ubuntu. I didn't realize that Pop! OS had something similar. I will go and take a look at that, because it's quite possible that we could harmonize and coalesce around a single patch there. And the other thing that we discovered is that Yaru is also a sound theme. You'll have undoubtedly heard it when you're doing the install and mistyping things in the terminal. But in GNOME, you can change the alert sound, but there wasn't the facility to restore the alert sound back to the default Yaru theme. So we just added a simple thing, which is to set the audio back to the default, which is the Yaru audio theme. So there was a few things like that where, the Yaru team identified there were gaps in what you could configure and select in Ubuntu, and we addressed a number of those things or identified them at that sprint and subsequently addressed them during the rest of the cycle.
Cool. Let's see here. It looks like Leo's got his hand up. So
Yeah, been waiting.
yeah, let's.
Bated breath.
All right, go for it.
I mean, it's Ubuntu, number one. But number two, yeah, it's gotta be one of the best Ubuntus that I have ever seen. So, starting out with that, now I can just talk trash about it now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, overall, it's pretty fantastic. I've got it running on my main recording machine for Mintcast. It's a T450S, and everything is fantastic. Audacity runs great, Mumble runs great, and I'm running all of this stuff through snaps in the first place, which I feel like I don't know. That's the new hotness, right? Outside of the startup times, Snap is fantastic. I don't see I don't see any reason to hop off of any of the snaps that I've been using. And I actually didn't take stock of what I'm using in Snap versus what I'm not using in Snap. But as far as I know, pretty much everything is a Snap at the moment. So yeah, like I said, outside of the startup times on those things, fantastic. On the graphical side of things, this is where it gets a little muddy for me. And I don't know if it's everybody's Intel graphics cards or if it's just my Intel graphics card on my laptop. But when you hit the super key, you get that whole applications flyout with all the things. That is clunky. Graphically, it looks and works fine the third time you do it, but the first time you do it, you can really see that all of the animation is getting added into the graphics card. It's like it's actually trying to render all of that on the fly. And so it'll chunk out a little bit. But like I said, second, third time you do it, it's smooth. It looks the way that I think it's supposed to look. And you'll see that every now and then with minimizing a full screen app. You'll see kind of a little chunk as it goes down to the taskbar. But I mean, to be honest with you, my only gripes with it are just cosmetic. So the base is fantastic. I don't think I don't think I've rebooted it yet. So, and this is coming from the beta. Outside of updating your kernel, I don't think I've rebooted it yet. So, for no reason to do that. I've also put it on my desktop, and I think Shekel was talking about getting a new AMD card. Yeah, are you on the 5700 XT? Is that where you're at?
I am.
My
This
man.
is the first time I could use it.
Exactly. So on 5.3, there was this weird issue where like the mouse would just skip all over the place, but it was just the mouse. So 5.4 fixed all that for me, which means to me that I can install Ubuntu 20.04 on my desktop and not have to do anything. The pairing of kernel 5.4, don't get me wrong, in 5.5 there's some extra fixes for 5700 XTs, and I think even in 5.6 there's some extra hotness in there for it. But overall, 5.4 gets you where you want to be, and the fact that Ubuntu 20.04 comes with Mesa 20.0.4, so it's like 20.04, right? Because it comes with Mesa 20. The games are fantastic on it. I don't know whose bookshelf I saw it on, but I saw like all of the World of Warcraft deluxe editions. Yeah. So World of Warcraft in Ubuntu 20.04, fantastic. You lose a lot of that. When you log in right at the very beginning, you just stutter and stutter and stutter on Mesa 19.2, I think was the last version, 19.3, something like that. But after that, it's fantastic. You're on Mesa 20, that seems to smooth out pretty much all of that. So bringing in Mesa 20 was perfect.
So I've got a few things that you raised a few points there. The first is startup performance of snaps. We are not deaf to this. We are obviously aware. We have been working on it for some time. It turns out it's a complicated problem because there's lots of moving parts involved here. We were intending to get that resolved for 2004 release, but because of priorities in other parts of the project, we had to bump that particular bit of work in order to focus on something else. But we will now be resuming that work and getting those fixes landed in time for 2004.1, which is due at the end of July. So for
Ugh.
the 0.1 release, those updates will all have landed. Some snaps will also require a change in order to properly benefit, but we're lining those up as well. But that is definitely in progress. You mentioned Mesa 20 and your AMD card. It is no accident that AMD works well now, because we work directly with AMD to make sure that all of their out of tree patches were also landed in that version of Mesa. So they've been working with us for a few months now, and making sure that we carry all the necessary patches to make it the best that we can on top of the 5.4 kernel. If you're feeling experimental,
I am.
the OEM kernel is a 5.6 kernel. So there is a 5.6 kernel in the archive if you want to go and get a 5.6 kernel, because you're running the latest schnizzle. And for 2010, it's either going to be a 5.7 or a 5.8 kernel.
Ooh, yes, that's gonna be fantastic. Well, cool. I'm. You don't know how happy I am to hear the Snap startup thing. I try to put it off to the side, but I have to mention it. You know, because it's part of it. But the fact that
a
it's
legitimate problem, you know, you can't ignore that. You know, it's an issue that people are encountering. So, you know, there's no
Right.
point trying to duck it. It's best to just acknowledge it head on.
And-
definitely.
And I
But-
think some of them are worse than others for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you know,
the dynamics are quite interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not one thing. So sometimes it's the size of the snap, but it's not the size of the snap, it's the number of files. But then it's not the number of files, it's the number of small files that are inside the snap. And it's to do with how long it takes, not to decompress the squashfs, but how long it takes to index all of those small files as the squashfs is mounted and all. And so there's a bunch of things that happen there, and then there's caches and things that need to be warmed up when you start a snap for the first time. And what we're working on is moving some of that out into the installation process rather than the run process. So those caches get created at install time so that they're not a thing that needs to run each time you start the snap. So there's a whole raft of things. And then there's some bits around compression as well. Some particular applications don't like the XZ compression that we're using in squashfs. So we're going to add a capability to elect to use LZO compression on your snaps if you have one that would benefit from that rather than XZ. So there is a mix of improvements coming along there that will make this better.
So if I could distill that down to what that means to me is get on 2004, stay, and when hardware enablement comes out, all of my problems will disappear. Most of them. I feel like I'm at 95% right now.
Not
And-
even hardware enablement. You won't need the hardware enablement stuff in order to get these particular fixes. They're just going to land as regular updates.
Even
And-
better.
And unlike past Ubuntu releases, everyone is on the hardware enablement track from the 0.0 release. So there's none of this confusion now about whether you install 0.0 or 0.1, whether you're actually opted in or not. On the desktop and the desktop only, you're opted into hardware enablement by default from 0.0.
That's fantastic. Because I always have to remember, hey, did I do the original 2004 or 1804 when I was thinking about this, or did I do 1804 1 so that I'll just get it automatically? Yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic.
I was curious with these like improvements and changes to snaps. How exactly does the process of like, because I know Snapd is separate from the snaps themselves. So when updates have to happen to like how snaps work, are those changes that happen in Snapd that are locked to like the release, or are the changes rolling kind of like snaps are?
So yes, there are changes that happen within the context of Snapd. Snapd is a number of different bits and pieces, but yes, these are fixes that ostensibly land in Snapd. Snapd is one of the packages in the archive that rolls. You will be aware of others. For example, the most notable one is Firefox. There is some software in Ubuntu that is not, frozen, forever in time. It actually, moves forward at a predictable cadence. and Snapd is one of those utilities that will, chug forwards every 3 or 4 weeks.
All right, MC, are you there, brother?
Yes, sir. So I've been using this for, like I said, I installed it before last week, and I've been using it for the last week. Like I said last week, it's sharp, it's beautiful looking. I haven't had any issues with it from a hardware standpoint. Everything's been running. Once in a while, I get an odd glitch where when I bring the menu up, when I do the show all your applications, it's like half of it's offset, and I can't tell. It's happened when I had the scaling on and the scaling off. A couple times. It's just, if I close it and reopen it, it all resets itself. It's just one of those hard to pin down to actually say this is a bug and this is how I produce it. Otherwise, I would use this as my daily driver if I didn't have issues with GNOME. And that's just a personal workflow. My main desktop, I use a 4K 43-inch monitor, so I'm big on using quadrants, and GNOME is not really good at that out the box, where Ubuntu Mate is really good with that out the box. So that's why I pretty much always use Ubuntu Mate as my main desktop. But yeah, otherwise, like I said last week, this is a very sharp, sexy looking desktop. And if there was no Ubuntu Mate, I probably would find a way to make this happen for me, because it's really great.
It's interesting you mention quadrant tiling. So that is something that I was looking at as potentially putting on the roadmap for 2010. It didn't make it as something that we're going to actively work on. But I have two 27-inch monitors in front of me right now. And that's why quadrant tiling works so well in Ubuntu Mate, because yes, I quadrant everything, or used to. I'm obviously running Ubuntu proper on my main machine now, because that's the responsible thing to do when that's your day job, right?
Yeah, it is, unfortunately.
Is there a GNOME extension that can handle that?
There are a couple, actually. There's one, and it's just called Shell Tile. It doesn't properly work with Wayland, so if you decide to use Wayland, well,
I don't.
And then there's Pop OS's one that they have that's called Pop Shell, which their GitHub page should have it, I believe.
It's out in 2004's version.
It is, yeah. It's
well, the Pop OS has shell tiling, but how do you set up the quarter tile hotspots along the walls in the shell tile? Because I actually have that set up in GNOME Tweaks, and it doesn't want shell tile. Go into settings in that, and it just has tile to left edge, tile to right edge, tile to the top, tile to the bottom. It doesn't have quarter tiling, which is actually what I'm looking for.
I actually thought they had quarter tiling in there. I might be mistaken.
I think they have Fibonacci.
Oh, is that what they're using?
Yeah.
So it's like technically not quarter tiling, because you have to push everything into it.
Right. So that's
frustrating.
Yeah, I if I could find that, I'd be happy as a clam, because that's one of the minor niggles, as Nate would say, that I came across. But it certainly isn't enough to keep me off of it, because I can just dump enough programs on to have 4.
All right. Anybody else want to get in on Ubuntu 2004?
It's pretty awful. You should all just avoid it at all costs.
Really, Adam?
Yeah, I'm telling you.
All right, hey, everybody, Adam's here.
Hey, it could be worse. It could be Fedora.
It gave me a flat tire. It kicked my cat. I'm just saying, you can't. No, it's great. It's great.
I was going to say, because you were singing its praises through Telegram this past week.
Until they kicked my cat. It's a great distro. Clearly a lot of work went into it.
Yes.
A lot of the like little things that add up together, right? We talk about paper cuts as small issues that mount over time. These are sort of like those tiny band-aids no one ever has a use for, but if you take like a few of them, you can cover the cut pretty well. It's kind of like that, right? All the little polishing things that really add up to a good experience. That's the main thing I took away from it.
Agreed. JJ,
How's it going, you guys?
good? What's happening?
Yeah, so I've been using the 2004 for Ubuntu Budgie for a while, and it's most of the stuff is not necessarily to complain, although some of the weird features I've felt a little uncomfortable with, especially one major thing that I've noticed is whenever I plug in my laptop to a docking station to my multiple monitor setup, for some reason the sidebar seems to want to overlap with the top window description bar, and I have posted this on the discourse for Ubuntu Budgie. And according to the team over there, they did say that it was. I think they don't have any experience with docking stations, so I think that's probably getting worked on as soon as they can. I know many teams' resources are. It all depends on how big the team is, usually for whatever distro. But all in all, it's 2004. I'm still transitioning over to it. It's not too big, but just that one thing.
All right. Aris.
Yes, I tried out the new Ubuntu. I was using 1910 for like I think a month and a half, and I've noticed like a lot of improvements of GNOME, especially now that I can suspend without holding Alt. That's a big positive for me. Also the do not disturb button. That's also very helpful. And one of the things that really annoyed me before was when I used to log into or sign into Wi-Fi, you couldn't see your password. So if you have a complicated password, you're just gonna have to guess it. Because I mean, the Wi-Fi don't put in that much, or you shouldn't really put it in that much just once. So I like that a lot. I like the new theme. It looks much better. I think it looks much more cohesive overall. And I tried I booted again the USB stick, and this time I didn't get the bug that I got last week, so I'm not sure what was going on. I know that I have the correct ISO, like I did the SHA-256, and it was the correct ISO, and even the boot up, but I didn't get the bug that I got last week, so I'm not sure what happened with that.
Maybe it was a bad USB.
Maybe, but I mean, that's the one I always use.
No, I meant just the writing of it that you did at that time.
Yeah, but also the checksum that Ubuntu does, it passed it. So I'm not sure what was going on.
Yeah,
but overall,
who knows?
It's a big improvement, I think, over the previous Ubuntu GNOME releases. The only thing I wish is they would have gone farther and not have me click that button to show logout, suspend, and power off. But it's a minor bug for me.
So that I seen it in the beta that it was in there that you could just click the button to shut down and restart, and then all of a sudden it went back to the menu. Was that something that was not supposed to be in there, Martin, or was that like maybe a complaint of people?
As far as I'm aware, whatever changes have been made there are upstream GNOME. We've not changed any of that behavior.
Well, when I had tried the daily images when it was first, coming out, you hit the power button and you would see an actual button for each thing, and then it changed back to a menu. So, not sure what happened there. Larry, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Just one question. It's probably a GNOME thing, but anybody know how I keep getting switched over to airplane mode?
I am not having that problem.
Are you on an airplane?
You want an airplane?
Stay grounded.
Yeah, these are turbulence you see right now.
Larry, are you using a laptop?
Yeah, using a laptop.
The only thing
You close the lid and open it, and it will switch to airplane mode, but doesn't switch back. That's been a GNOME issue for a while now,
Okay.
at least for me.
Okay, but I'm enjoying it. The Ubuntu.
Just so I understand, you're saying that if you're on a laptop, maybe not all laptops, but if you're on a laptop and you shut the lid to suspend, it may leave you. It may put you into airplane mode and leave you there when you resume.
When you open it up, it lives in airplane. Not always, sometimes.
My guess is that it does that because it's better for the battery if like the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chips and all that stuff isn't like actively running and doing stuff, and then sometimes it just doesn't turn it back on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like an interesting one to look at.
Yeah, I've got 2 different brand laptops. I got a ThinkPad T520, I think it is, and an Asus laptop. And I've had a problem with the past on I know on GNOME on the Asus, and then on 2004 on my ThinkPad. I had a problem earlier this week. I love it. It's neat.
I've had that problem even with Ubuntu Mate once in a while, not all the time, but you close the lid, you go someplace, you open it back up, and sometimes it will, after if you just give it like 30 seconds, it will then connect. It will then restart the Wi-Fi. But once in a while it doesn't, and you just play with it, and it then works. So
I got a docking station on one, and but the other ones I normally keep the laptops closed, except to turn them on and off, and that's sort of rare.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else want to get in on Ubuntu 2004?
Yeah, I had a question, but also Esnix in chat had a question. He wanted to know if you can opt out of HWE, hardware enablement stack.
You can. We're going to prepare some documentation on how to do that, but essentially you install the meta package that is not the HWE meta package, which is the one that's installed by default. But we're going to write something up on that. I'd be interested to know while you're in chat why you want to opt out. Always interested to know the whys behind these requests. They're much more interesting.
And my question is, I just wanted to know, are you going to make some sort of filter in the software so you can filter out the snaps and the Ubuntu repo applications?
No.
No. Okay.
That's the short answer. No.
Yep. That's all right.
That's a good answer.
Only because Tony said at the moment it's a feature because you can tell which ones are which because of the generic icons. But once the icons are cached and up there, you really can't tell the difference between them.
Yeah, there's some bugs that we're definitely going to get fixed that will improve things. But no, we're not planning on filtering or anything like that.
All right.
If you go into the details of each one, doesn't it list the source as whether to? Okay,
Yes, it does.
I thought it did. I just
it does.
All right. Anybody else?
I seem to remember, I can't remember what distro, but I was on GNOME once, and I know in the GNOME software, it may have been in one of the arches. They would be near the top right. There was a toggle where if you click on it, it would say like either the distro repository or FlatHub. So
that's for Fedora probably.
Yeah,
it's also that way. It's that way in Pop OS also.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's where it was. It was in Pop OS that I saw it in the Pop Shop. And I thought that was a nice feature. Maybe, I was thinking maybe something like that could have been done with snaps too.
I was also interested in the maintaining the same kernel because I remember in the previous releases of Ubuntu, there was a bug with audio that if you pause something, like you're watching a video, then there was like a pop in the sound. And that I think that got fixed for 2004. But I know there's other bugs that come on kernel. So if everything works in my hardware, I would just keep the same kernel if possible. Because I don't have new hardware to begin.
The audio popping is due to things like the PCI bus or the USB bus, depending on where the audio lives, suspending, going into a power save mode. And then when the audio wakes up on some chips, you get that pop as a result, as the audio comes back to life. So there was some experimentation, I think it was in 1904, around being more aggressive with, power saving profiles and things like that. But that was one of the findings, that yes, you could save gobs of power, but when you're doing this for a general release that is intended to work on as broad a range of hardware as possible, you do some of these things and there are consequences for people. So we had to rein that in. So you don't get the best power endurance profile by default for all systems, because they all have different chips and components and behave differently, which is why we've added this feature in the installer now, that if you're installing Ubuntu on certified hardware, it will install all of those bespoke tweaks and tunings and additional firmware or whatever it might be to properly enable that device to take advantage of exactly the right performance profile and other capabilities. So we're trying to do the best we can in the places we know this is the correct thing that needs to be set up on this machine.
I was gonna make the case for not separating the snaps from the debs. I know this is probably controversial among those of us who want to see them separated. But I feel like having like these weird separate tiers of things that are coming from the store kind of cause confusion for some users. Like, I don't really know if most users either A, care about the package format, and B, like any of the philosophical reasons behind it. Like, they just want the app they need to work. And I don't know if for the majority of users, if that's probably good to further break it down. Like, we know the differences because we're more attentive to it and we can work around it, but I feel like it would be better not to make it harder for everybody else.
But we of the 0.01% need the devs to waste all that extra time fixing it just for us.
No, but I think there's a point in that we notice this stuff and we care about this stuff, but the majority of users probably don't. The only thing that I could see there being confusion in is if there are multiple choices of which to install, where you're a user that doesn't geek out on Linux and you just want to install this program and there's 3 different choices of this program and which do you install?
That's certainly something we could do better on in when the same software is available from more than one source, then to deduplicate the listing and then provide a means of how do you distinguish them. Now, I know KDE Discover does this quite well. It uses AppStream IDs to actually deduplicate the list, and it will present you the one application listing. But then when you go in there, you'll see that maybe there's 2 or 3 ways of actually getting access to that. And I think that's a legitimate improvement that we could work on, because when you see the same thing multiple times, that looks a bit messy, and it confuses people.
But as far as just installing them, I think we're in this room and the people watching are pretty much the only people that care.
Yeah, most people just want programs to work. They don't care how they get it, really.
Yeah, no, it's just software, really, and that's
I think it could be
we are a passionate, educated bunch of people that know what these nuances are and have our personal opinions about it, and therefore, we want things a particular way or maybe somehow different. But for most users, no, they just want the software.
So I symlink all my home folders, which has a problem with snaps. But I'm assuming that on a normal install, Snap should be able to read your normal home folders. Is that right?
If that's an attribute of the Snap has had added to your home folder, that's all part of the system. But it's not actually that it's not compatible with snaps. It's the fact that we're using container primitives such as setcomp and cgroups and AppArmor in order to create this isolation around snaps. And if you've ever done anything on a server where you've used those same primitives, you will know you simply can't symlink directories from one place into your web server directory, because now all of those things just won't follow through with the symlinks. And that's why you use bind mounts. And you will, if you look into the internals of how snaps work, they use bind mounts and pivot root extensively in order to do what they do.
Dave Jones, you were trying to get in earlier.
I was just going to say that I actually believe it is important to be able to know where the from what repository the applications are going to be coming from, because I know with snaps right now the theming doesn't always go with whatever theming you have for the distro that you've put on. And I've had on more than one occasions where I've gone into the GNOME Software Center and downloaded a an application, and then all of a sudden I found out that when I go into the application, the mouse cursor changes, so it starts going like this, pointing me to go in the wrong direction. And I have to say I have a little bit of Rocco in me. That little visual just it drives me crazy. I'm like, why is my mouse changing?
I didn't bring it up, but I feel the same way.
So there's a couple of things there. The first is that when you look at software in the Software Center, each application will tell you whether it's coming from the archive or the Snap store. So you can tell that. You just can't see it from the list of everything. But if you go into an application, you can see where it comes from. And just like with Snap startup times, we are well aware of that issue that you have just described with X cursors changing. Now, we know how to fix this. And again, this is a long burn. And this was another one of those projects that got deprioritized towards the end of 2004 because it was blocking another project that was more important. But we have code that's in review that will remedy some of these theming issues. So what we're working on is a mechanism by which when you install a snap and you've got a theme set in your preferences that's not currently available on the system as a snap, it will source a snap of that theme that is compatible with the GTK version inside that snap in order that you get a cohesive look and feel. Now, we're working on the bit that makes all of that magic happen, but then we will need to work with the community in order to build a corpus of themes of snaps so that when you're using whatever theme it is you choose to use, then it's there and available to be dynamically installed alongside the application to make sure it's compatible. Because you need to remember, snaps could be built against stuff from 1604, or could be built against stuff from 1804, or could be built against stuff from 2004. And all of those have different versions of GTK inside them. And therefore the style classes and what have you for those themes are slightly different. So you need a different version of the snap to work in the context of each of those applications in order to present a cohesive thing. So it's surprisingly non-trivial. Now, we could have done the easy thing, which is just point inside the themes folder and say, use that. But then you're no better off than the current situation, which is you could put a theme on your system, which is for GTK from the past, which also doesn't work. So what we're trying to do is actually sort of fix this issue where you can have like API breakage, between generations of GTK versions that exist inside runtimes.
So basically, you're trying to fix the long-term problem rather than the fix for the short term.
Yeah.
This sounds a lot like the way that Flatpak deals with it, because every time I've installed a theme, like you get like Arc Dark comes down in a Flatpak as well.
It's not dissimilar. Yeah, it's not dissimilar. And the touching points and the where this work is happening is increasingly in the same places. So it's around the XDG portal stuff. So a lot of these things are, you know, in and around the same bits of code now.
Love it.
Very nice. Alex is here. What's happening, brother?
Hello.
We were talking about Ubuntu 2004. You want to get in on it or no?
I think it's good. I'm actively writing a new blog post around the Perfect Media Server 2020, around, you know, the ZSys thing that's in 2004. So it's pretty cool. You know, I can update stuff and not break stuff and roll back if I do.
Nice.
Great work. And I think props should go. I said this to Martin the other night, that is it Yaru theme? My God, that thing is just stunningly beautiful. It's just
I can't remember the last time that people have nonstop talked about a theme in a distro. Like everybody talks about the Yaru theme. So hey, it's cool. I love it. I love talking about themes. I'm just saying.
I have to say, I'm really pleased when I hear this stuff, because you know, we really set out to have that kind of impact with the theme. You know, the whole point was this, you know, the desktop is our shop window, and we really wanted to, you know, do something that you couldn't not miss. You know, from boot to desktop, it's very obviously still Ubuntu, but it's, you know, it's a fresh new look. So when I hear people say how much they like it and, you know, how good it is, it's very pleasing, not just for me, but also for the Yaru team and our design team, because that was the whole point.
Yep. Well, you know,
internet.
there will be people out there who say it's superficial to talk about the theme and everything, but I think, I mean, that the look of the desktop, whatever it is, no matter which distro or desktop environment it is, means a lot. And especially means a lot to people who are not going to go in and tweak it. It is, it's that first impression of a distro or the first impression of a desktop environment is extremely important to people, and the overall image that you portray as a release. So I think it's awesome.
Our distributions being like, oh man, I really want to get Yaru installed on this. Like, I've been in the Fedora group, and every so often there's people like, man, I really want to get Yaru running on my thing. So they go and they download the theme, and I'm like, that's quality, because that's like a default, and people are like, I want this on my system. That's beautiful.
They did a fantastic job.
Yep,
they really did.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is in Arch user repositories as well, so people are apparently downloading it.
Yeah. So, you know, it's no mistake. So we actually contacted the maintainers of the themes in the various distros and what have you, and this was a product of that design sprint back in January, because we wanted to make sure that Yaru was available everywhere other distro users are, and more so where other developers are, so that they're easily able to install it and make sure their applications are working correctly, or rather, we haven't done something that breaks their applications inadvertently. So that's one of the reasons why it exists in so many places.
Yep. All right. It is 9:05, and we said that we were going to not do a big distro challenge section, and we ended up talking about an hour and 5 minutes anyway.
Well, it's Ubuntu.
That's because it's awesome.
No,
I mean,
but I think it comes
yeah.
from, this is what people want to talk about, rather than forcing somebody to talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and the stream has cut out once or twice in between there, but like I said, I'm still recording. So,
yeah.
Cool.
All right. So I have some personal things that I need to go over. One is I want to thank John Anderson. He actually watched the Biddle Europe last week, or the week, not last week, last month.
Yeah.
We talked about audio production, and we talked about the audio quality and how I wanted to raise the quality of Linux Spotlight and this here in particular, Biddle. And he ended up having we mentioned a DBX 286, and he had one and offered to send it here to me to have as a a gift to the channel and to raising the audio quality. So that was an awesome thing of him to do. And I really appreciate it. And I probably said I wasn't going to mention his name, but I mentioned his name anyway.
That's okay. That's credit where credit's due there.
That was a complete surprise and an awesome thing. I do not have it set up yet. I do have it, but I don't have it set up yet because I'm waiting for XLR cables from Amazon, which are not considered essential. So they're taking much longer than they normally would to get here. Otherwise, it would probably be in place already. So
I ordered some Lysol 6 weeks ago and it's still not here. So if that ain't essential.
Big Daddy Live's not essential?
It's not
Since
essential,
when?
dude.
Oh, come on.
Rocco, I'll be very curious what you think of it. I had actually been researching that after I stumbled across that, but I hadn't really gotten the chance to look at it any further. So I'll be curious what you end up thinking.
Well, Ryan has swore by it for a few years now. He has one, and he said to me that I should have got one before, but there's only so many things you can buy all at once, and at this point it wasn't on the list to buy, but I really do appreciate getting it. So as soon as I can get it set up, Bash, I will let you know how it works out.
That's cool. And you need my wife to order your stuff for you because we have Amazon packages showing up every day.
Well, I don't know what it is. I guess they send out certain ones, but certain ones just get flagged
Maybe it's because
for
of the strike.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've even went on to Amazon and looked at buying something and it'll stay right out. It's a month out for
Yeah,
shipping.
I know.
So
But then it comes in a week anyway.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
hit
I
or miss.
found.
I've had stuff that says, "Oh, well, it's not going to get there until mid-May." 3 days later, it's on my doorstep. So
There it is.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I
you're-
haven't had
you're
that
looking-
experience.
Yeah, I'm
You're
just
looking
shocked
at the
how many
cone
people
of.
Sorry. Go right ahead, Martin.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, why can't we I haven't seen many people protesting about this on Twitter or anything, considering canceling their subscription.
Nah.
So you can see the cone of clean here.
hmm
Very specifically this
Corner.
shot, because all the packages that we've ordered in like the last 6 weeks arrived in the last 4 days, and the rest of this room is like absolutely rammed with empty boxes that I've had to break down, and I don't know what to do with because I can't take them to the recycle center. So the rest of my office, I have to actually clamber over piles of cardboard to get in and out of the room.
Well, along with the DBX 286, there was a gentleman in the discourse forums that posted about he had heard the same episode and offered to help with the audio quality, and I really appreciate that. And I talked to him about how we might go about that, but there's with me back working 50 hours a week and Linux Spotlight and Biddle, there's just no way that I have time to dive into that kind of stuff. So I appreciate the offer, appreciate the help, but yeah, that's probably not going to happen for a while.
You'll get there, Rocco.
We'll get there.
I
So
didn't even know there were 50 hours in a week. That's pretty cool.
there's many more than that. So we're not picking a distro per se, but we are picking a distro. So again, the distro challenge is not going to be quite as structured as it was, but somebody might have planned out the scheduling of the distros that we're trying, and it might have been scheduled so that Ubuntu Mate is next, so that the next BDLL Europe, it lands on when we're giving our opinion on Ubuntu Mate. Just saying, Martin.
When is that next week?
BDLL Europe is next Saturday.
That's brilliant timing. Okay, then. It just so happens I'm not doing anything.
That's awesome. I love it.
Certainly you are now.
Yeah, so you're more than welcome to show up to Europe next week, and we'll probably talk about it on Europe, and who knows, we may talk about it on the late show.
3 times on the bounce. I'll be practically a regular at that point.
Yeah, we'll get you a job. You keep coming.
Yeah, do remind me because I get confused when you switch them to European time, and I just need to make sure I've got all the family stuff done, you know, hoofed children into beds and things.
He's got a job, and I want him to keep it.
And maybe we'll even get Barb to participate in this. You're muted, Barb.
Muted.
But she's like,
What? Me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I can.
Perfect
I
euphemism.
know after a while I just kind of glaze over as you guys are.
Yes, I know. But again, this is not something mandatory. You don't have to try it, and we're not going to go down the list and call you out for it. It's just going to be, if you want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to. So, all right, on to next business. Who's got, what do they got? The two want to bring up? Anybody?
Wow, nicely done.
That was
Rocco.
perfect.
Tony,
Seamless.
do you have it installed?
So
Seamless.
I have a question for everyone. I
Thomas.
posted this on the forum, I think maybe a week or two ago. I am looking for an app where I can point it to other apps on my system, and it will launch in the background whenever my computer boots and time how long I am in each of those apps I designate. And I have found a number of apps that I can manually say I have started doing this thing and I have stopped doing this thing, but I don't want to do something manual. I just want to tell it, I want you to track this app and go. And it just times me. Someone, I don't remember their name, in that forum thread suggested a Flatpak Gold workflow. And I did try that. I couldn't figure out how to use it. So I've like started making my own app, but I'd rather not. So has anybody got any suggestions on things that I can try otherwise before I go all in on this?
So Thomas, is this more or less like digital well-being?
No, but yes. It's more of, I want to know how long I am, or how much time I'm putting into certain projects. That way I can say, oh, this is how much time I'm putting into this project per week. So, maybe it's less of a hobby and more of like a part-time job, or, something like that.
I believe I can script this with systemd. I'll send you some messages. I mean, assuming you're using systemd, because I know it's terrible
I
and
am.
everybody hates it, but
Okay, because the way I've started doing this is, so there's a command you can use called pgrep, and you can do, like, for instance, right now, if you did pgrep zoom in a terminal, it would give you the process ID for zoom, which is great for checking to see if something's running. So I'm trying that in a Python script. But if I can have something that works with the system at a little bit lower level, it'll probably have better performance than just calling pgrep.
So how would you differentiate? Oh, my video back on. How do you differentiate between something you're using? Telegram, for example, is on one window. Zoom is over here. I have a web browser over there. I've dropped in over there. Like, I'm using all of these things right now, but I'm not actually using all of them, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
how do you
And
differentiate between those sorts of problems?
so on the one I'm working on, you don't. It just tracks how long an application is open, and it assumes that, if an application is open, you're using it. Other ones I have heard, it actually watches your screen and takes screenshots in the background every once in a while, and I do not like that. That is an invasion of privacy, sir. Let's not do that.
You could just look at which window is active and just catalog.
Yes.
This is the active window. This is the start time now, and the other window is active. This is the start time, therefore, and track things that way.
Okay.
you could also possibly not log like specific network data, but see like when things are actually communicating en masse through the network. So like if you start a transfer for something on your project and then move to another window, maybe perhaps things that are let's say out of the ordinary and probably only happen with that project, like large network transfers. You could probably also keep track of those as well. So if something is happening in the background, you probably still have that as part of your log.
Nate, this sounds like something that would interest you.
Yeah, go Nate.
Is my volume okay?
A little low, maybe, but not
It's
bad.
fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So Thomas, I'm actually I do something very similar, but what I do is I use a little notebook next to my computer, and then and I actually write down what it is that I'm working on, and that's how I keep track of it. And the really neat thing is, like, any updates on my computer never affects this, and it works. It's cross-platform. I'm just saying.
There's this stylus like
Is it bad
Yeah.
that I was going to say build a little rack with like 10 stopwatches in it, and you just push the button on which one you're doing?
I like Nate's idea because that's how I do things.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It
Yeah,
does.
if you want to computerize it, you can just put the information in a file.
Come on, Alex. You can automate this somehow, can't you?
I like Nate's version. That's how I do it.
I understand that this is the way that is probably just most obviously easy, but there's an issue that it's going to end up taking way more time for me, because not only do I want the amount of time that each of these that I'm using each of these apps, I want to be able to go in and have a total, so that I can say I have been in each of these apps for a given number of time, and this is the total. So if I have like 2,000 usages and I want to total all of these, I'm not going to manually write down each of these and manually add them on paper. I'm not going to type them into a computer or an Excel spreadsheet and have it add them myself. I want to be able to say, okay, you take all of these, add them.
Well, isn't what you're asking for is like what iOS has for like screen time?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah.
But I just want something on Linux because I'm not going to use Apple.
Obviously. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to wrap my head around what you're asking. So,
And like the way I'm doing it now is I have a script that I modify for every single app that I want to track, but I have to modify it in different ways for different apps. And that becomes very confusing. And some apps, it just dumps garbage into the log file. And I have to go in and manually edit that, and it doesn't track the time for that app.
Is there no kind of spyware you can download for this? Like, I'm pretty sure there's some malware out there that'll do just what you need.
The problem
Some
with that
kind of a
method,
keylogger.
especially
And
if
more.
you're doing it per app, is that you're going to be wasting tons of CPU cycles, basically duplicating work.
I think
like,
Easy
the
Anti-Cheat
reason-
does that.
Yeah,
does.
Valorant's Vanguard's pretty good at it too.
Just write something that captures the current active window title and keep and I don't know, sticks it in separate files even by window title name, and in each of those files is the amount of time that it was run, in each instance, and then that can be summed, and then it doesn't matter which application you care about, you'll just have all of them, and you'll be able to sum up the actual time that those windows were active, and therefore you were using those applications rather than just having them open and in the background doing nothing.
There may be something that's already out there right now for that. That's called activity time. So you might want to check it out. It's on GitHub or Activity Watch. Sorry, activitywatch.net. And then you can just check out their GitHub page and grab the Linux version of it. And it seems like it's doing exactly what you want. If the window's open, you're working on it. It's timing it.
Yeah.
Does it work on Wayland as well? I'd be curious to
What
see how
works
they
on
handle
Wayland?
that.
Yeah, right. Probably not.
Thankfully, that's not something I'm worried about. It can work on X and only X, and I'll be happy.
Nothing really works on
Which-
Wayland, so
I'll go ahead and throw this out there. If I end up having to develop my own app for this, yes, the source code will be available, and I will try to package it for different distros.
if you need any help packaging, I can help with that.
I will definitely need help for anything non-Debian.
I'm pretty good at that now.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your help. I appreciate it because I've been ripping my hair out trying to find an app that'll do this. And it's either A, super old, or B, doesn't do what I want, or C, is unusable.
Cool.
All right. I wanted to bring up last week about the Ubuntu 2004 survey results that everybody I know took part in, right? Everybody took part in the Ubuntu survey.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I wouldn't give them my data. What are you talking about, Rocco?
And it's perfect because, Martin's here, so, we can always get his take on it. So, but anyway, there was a post on the Ubuntu website about the survey results. They broke it down, but there was a couple of things that I found, kind of interesting as I'm reading through this. And it's I'm going to quote some of the things that are on there. So it says 2 years ago, we made the switch from the canonical developed Unity desktop environment to GNOME 3.28. The move was controversial in the community, but was made because ultimately people were already using GNOME and liked what they had. So our efforts in Unity were seen as fragmentation and not innovation. That is something that I never really, that reasoning, I didn't hear about. I heard all kinds of different things of why they people didn't like Unity, but that part of it was never really, I don't know, the main reason why people said that. I don't know what your guys' opinion on that is.
Well,
So
go on.
I was gonna say I'm relatively new to the Linux sphere, so I haven't really experienced a lot of the sort of like like how GNOME used to be and like when Unity started. But everything that I've heard from people that like moved away from Ubuntu when Unity came along, or moved towards other things, or just were unhappy, they all just kind of seemed to want GNOME too. And what I noticed was as Unity sort of grew and progressed, I got in around 1604 where it was really, really good. The people who were unhappy with it were the same people that tended to think that like Mir was sort of done in hostility to kind of have everything done in-house. Like I feel like people stick to something and then other things seem like threats, or they just don't seem appealing.
Well, a lot of people will tout the fragmentation part of Linux as, awesome. And it is awesome. But I never heard that explained in that way before about that switch. It was usually the same people that are saying fragmentation is good. They're not going to use that as an argument against Unity, which
I'm not sure that people say fragmentation is good. I think people say that choice is good. But, at a time where people were coalescing around GNOME, to go our own way was seen as fragmentation. And I made the point earlier. I asked somebody why in the chat they were choosing to do a particular thing. I wasn't so much interested in what they were doing, but the why they were doing it. And so what that survey did, you will notice it wasn't a bunch of tick boxes and sliders, where you just get to choose your pre-canned answer. It was very open-ended text, so people could actually explain to us in their own words what they felt about things. Now, that makes our job quite tricky to analyze that data because it's broadly all free-form text, but you get a much better response. And this is one of the responses is that you would hear, I hate Unity, but nobody was ever explaining why. And now they have. Or what now they have, but equally, there's an awful lot of people that loved it and still love it. It's kind of difficult.
Yep. Another thing on this survey, it says of the 21,291 people who made it to the last page of the survey, 51.1% were from Europe, 22.4% were from North America, and 12.1% from Asia, and the rest from elsewhere. So 51% were from Europe, which I think is well, maybe not an astounding number, but it was surprising. I don't want to. It was surprising to me to see them kind of numbers. Let's put it that way. The last thing I wanted to bring up about it was with the official Ubuntu taking the lead with 85.4% of respondents using it Kubuntu, Xubuntu, and Ubuntu Mate all came pretty close to a second spot. So 85%, Martin, that doesn't leave a lot for the other flavors to get, basically.
Yeah, and remember, this is 21,000 people are giving their opinion, right? The difference is a lot bigger than that. There's far more people using Ubuntu than the flavors when you actually look at the numbers. Now, I can't share what those are. Let me say this. The space that's left for the flavors is the fraction of a percent based on the number of people using Ubuntu. So that said, there's still a large volume of people using the flavors. You know, it can be counted in hundreds of thousands.
Yep. Well, then you just got to do the backwards math. That's all.
I didn't say how many hundreds, and I didn't say how many hundreds for each of the flavors. So you're grappling in the dark there.
Yep. Well, anybody else have any thing they want to add to the survey results? Anything they found interesting about it? All right, good.
Well, my question would be is, were the questions the right questions? What didn't we ask that you would have liked to have seen on there?
To be honest with you, that was longer than yesterday, so I don't remember.
I was gonna say I don't remember. Like I remember taking it, but I have no idea what I answered.
Does anybody remember when was the survey going on? Because I think I took it, but I don't remember when that was.
I want to say fall of last year.
Yeah, it was end of December last year, just before Christmas.
Of course, it seems like April has lasted all of 2020 anyway. So
right, yeah. I mean, I can't believe it's May. Last time I checked the calendar properly, it was March.
Yep. All right, Dan, you brought up something the other week.
I did a couple of weeks ago. I brought up, the question for folks, what do you host at home, right? And, when you really think about it, a lot of us do have something, even if it's small, that we have, just a little thing, because we're all enthusiasts here. So I started a discourse thread and got some really interesting results from that. I didn't post, but I will share right now with the group some of the things that I find as a highlight. One of them is Nextcloud, and I only recently installed Nextcloud I've been hosting things for a long time, but one of the things that sparked it was actually something my wife was looking at doing, and that was getting her cookbook stuff into some sort of digital format that she could have on multiple devices. And so there's an add-on you can get for Nextcloud. So I did that, and I'm finding a whole bunch of great things that obviously go along with that. So that's been an exciting journey for me, and we got some good results, basically, on the thread of other things that people host on their own. And I don't know, probably one of the other things that's kind of a big deal, I guess, is the same sort of thing. File storage, keeping track of your stuff in multiple places, because you should back up. I mean, that's always a good idea. And yeah, so that was a topic of discussion.
Well, we just happen to have Alex here who enjoys that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, Nextcloud is like the kind of cliche choice at this point. It's kind of like, hey, yeah, of course, everybody that wants to do self-hosting runs Nextcloud. And Chris and I don't really talk about it, even though both of us use it every day. All of JB's production goes through Nextcloud, and it's just great. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that we have that as an open source project as an option is just fantastic. Now, another option for cookbooks you might want to look at is something called Chowdown. I've been
Okay.
using this for about a month or so, and it's just super simple. Little cookbook, digital cookbook. plain text files, which is also really nice. Which leads me into my issue this week. I had Joplin kind of lost its mind and deleted about 4 hours worth of writing I'd been doing. I was writing away and I left the app open on my desktop overnight, and for whatever reason, Joplin decided that the sync that was in Nextcloud was more important than what I'd had locally and overwrote what was on my desktop.
Oh, wow.
So I came back in the morning and it was just gone. So I was quite cheesed off by that. But so, self-hosting is great until
Yeah.
until you create your own problems. But
That sounds like it would be a problem that I did. Yep.
Some of my favorite self-hosted apps, Plex, another obvious one.
Yeah.
I discovered this week you can self-host a Music Brains mirror, which is kind of cool. I do a self-hosted speed test with Libre Speed. I run about 25, nearly 30 now applications on my server, and I'm going to post my Docker Compose file into the chat so that anybody that is curious can look at all the crap that I run. Yeah, if you're interested in that kind of thing, plug, self-hosted.show. We talk about it every week.
So to build on what Alex was saying about Nextcloud and also Dan as well, the Ubuntu podcast use SyncThing as the means to share our show assets around, because we don't need a document, don't need all of the features of Nextcloud. So we've each got an instance of SyncThing running in our homes, and that's how we shunt that data around. And just today, I have set up AdGuard at home. And if you're not familiar with AdGuard, the AdGuard Home Edition is epic. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. So think Pi-hole, but actually good, and not made with bits of string and blue tack. So yeah, AdGuard is terrific. And then, as Alex said, I have a Plex home server that I've been running for, I don't know, must be getting close to 10 years now, something like that. And I do a rather cheeky thing. I have a little PVR script. So all of our favorite programs from the BBC get automatically sucked down from the iPlayer and injected into our Plex server, so we can watch them through Plex. So there's a series running at the moment that we really like, but we're not going to go like steam powered television and have to wait a week between episodes. So we'll just let that ingest over 10 weeks, and then we'll be able to binge the whole thing in a weekend when we've got them all collected up.
The only way to watch it.
Yeah, it's a Netflix mentality, right?
Someone in the chat asked, do you guys have one big machine? Yes, I do actually. I built, because I spin up a lot of OpenShift stuff for work, I needed something with, it's got 128 gigs of RAM, my server. So I can spin up 2 or 3 Kubernetes clusters at once. But the nice upside is that when I want to do stuff for messing about, I have lots of, resources. And I just have one big box that runs, I don't know, a dozen VMs, and I can do everything I need in that one big box. The downside, and I used to run pfSense actually as a VM on that machine with PCI pass-through for the network card. But the downside of that was whenever I wanted to reboot that box, my internet also went down. And so after about 6 months of that, I finally decided to just build a $100 cheap x86 system to run pfSense as a dedicated box. So I actually have 2 servers effectively. I've got one that's a pfSense router only, and then the other one is running ESXi in my basement, and it just works beautifully well.
This is all geek to me.
That's really nice.
It goes over my head.
My home server is an Intel NUC that used to be my workstation from, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I think it's got 16 gigs of RAM in it, and I have 2 4-disk enclosures, and each of those are connected to separate USB 3 ports on the back. And I have a primary array and a secondary array. and it runs off the primary and it synchronizes to the secondary periodically. So the secondary's bigger, and it's got deltas of the snapshots going back in time. So if I've got restore points, but it just runs on a NUC with a bunch of disks attached over USB 3, which is surprisingly more than fast enough to stream full HD and 4K movies around the house.
Martin and I share a love of a bit of software called Merger FS.
Yeah.
Which allows you to have multiple hard drives of different sizes, of different file systems presented under one single mount point. So each of his USB drives, for example, is presented just under /mount/storage or whatever.
Yeah.
Rather than 10 different drives you have to navigate through one by one. It's just magic.
And unlike traditional RAID solutions, this is great for the home because it means only one of those, if it's in use, only one of those disks is ever spinning, because the file that you want isn't sprayed across multiple disks. The file that you want is on a single drive because it aggregates drives, not stripes the data. So it's actually good for heat and power. You know, it doesn't consume as much heat because they're not all spinning all the time, and it doesn't generate as much heat as well. So that was a problem that I had here. Believe it or not, in the UK in the summer, I lost some discs a couple of years ago because they overheated in the hot, because we don't have air conditioning, because that would be crazy because you'd only use it one day a
2
year.
years ago was the hottest summer ever, though, if I recall.
Yeah, it was. That was the year I lost them. Yeah. In fact, they're there on the windowsill to remind me. I've kept them.
They're still cooling off.
Yeah.
I'm laughing in Southern American heat right now, but it was
Right,
really
yeah.
hot that summer.
But
So
then
I do want.
my
Go ahead.
AdGuard is running on Ubuntu Core on a Raspberry Pi.
Cool.
On a Raspberry
So
Pi 3.
I do want to point out, though, I mean, that's two different extremes as far as physical size. Alex has obviously got a physical server that's like made to be server-y, and Martin's actually rededicated a standard desktop. So I guess that points out that you can run some of these things on just about anything you got lying around and at least get yourself started on doing some great stuff.
If you want something even cheaper and smaller than Martin's, I've got a Pi 3.
Yeah.
And I've got a Western Digital MyBook attached to it, and it's running an own cloud server that I can access from anywhere. So, I mean, I've got, it's all of less than $100.
I'm amazed we made it 15 minutes into this conversation without the Pi coming up, actually. It's a fantastic option.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
The only thing that lets the Pi 4 down, a Pi 3, you can USB boot. The only thing that lets the Pi 4 down, in my opinion, is you have to boot from an SD card still. You can do Pixie boot and that kind of stuff if you're that way inclined.
There's firmware updates coming to turn on USB booting, though.
Oh, soon, please.
Yeah.
I've been waiting months.
Right.
Honestly, I thought about taking my Rock Pro 64 and doing something with it, but I decided not to because Plasma Big Screen came out, and it's the only ARM board that I have that I can do actual ARM development on because it's not running Android. So it's kind of tied up in developing for ARM Linux that's not Android.
Still an affordable option, though, so it's not
It
too
is.
terribly expensive.
And as far as I'm aware, it's the only ARM-based single board computer that you can get that has a PCIe slot. So if you wanted to, you can stick like a gigabit Ethernet card or something like that in, and it'll work.
I would love to see an HBA card. You know, one of those ones that you put a couple of SAS connectors into. It turns 2 ports into 8 ports.
Yep.
And you have to power the 8 hard drives. But I'd still love to see a Rock Pro with 8 hard drives connected to it. That'd just be so cool.
I'm trying to. So the kernel that they use on the Rock Pro 64 does not have the NoView drivers built in, which makes a lot of sense. You know, you wouldn't expect somebody to use a dedicated graphics card with these, but that's exactly what I'm trying to do because I have a old-ish. It's a GT 710 that I'm trying to get to work with it, and I have to build my own kernel, which I'm perfectly fine with. I do it all the time anyway, but I got to find a way to get that Rock Pro 64 to boot with it so I can actually try that. But it should have enough power barely to run the thing. So
This is a card I'm trying to get working with some ARM SBCs at the moment, so you probably can't see, but
That looks like 4 NVMe.
that's
Yep.
four. That is
Ooh.
4 NVMe
Nice.
sockets on a PCI bus.
Yep,
So
and
yes,
PCIX, yeah.
yeah.
So
It's a
Martin, I
pretty
have a problem with
cool
that.
bit of kit. That
Uh-oh.
go on.
I have one of those cards, and I got.
Oh, you have this one?
I have. I don't know if that is that the Asus.
No, this is Sedna.
Okay, so I have the Asus card, and I have 2 NVMe drives for it. The computer's only recognizing one.
Oh dear. That's
So I'm not
unfortunate.
sure if it's an issue where. So I already have 2 NVMe's in the motherboard, and I know that sometimes, like I know that it only has certain lanes or whatever. So when you plug in 2 NVMe's, you lose some SATAs. I'm not sure if it's something like that I have already 2 on the motherboard that it is only going to recognize one. I don't know.
I know what the issue is. Okay,
What?
right. So each NVMe drive is 4 PCI lanes. So if you're plugging it into a 4-lane PCI socket, then only one of those drives is going to be accessible. So
You just
if
use a
you want,
16X.
yeah, if you've got 2, if it's got 2 slots on it, it needs to go into an 8-lane PCI slot.
Aha. Thank you very much. Gonna check that out.
It should be written 8X on the motherboard beside the slot.
If you've ever wondered why people like Wendell make a big deal of Threadripper having, 64 PCIe lanes, that's why.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's because you have to have 4 NVMe drives and 4 graphics cards and
right.
who
And
knows what else.
it's even more important than that, because at the moment on Intel they will give you maybe, I think mine has got 24, but of course the graphics card needs 16 of those. But then it's also, where are the others? They're not connected to the CPU. They're usually on the PCH, and then the performance is garbage. So yeah, what AMD have been doing with just adding gobs of PCI lanes is just wonderful.
Well, I also have the 2080 in there, so that's taken up some of that
Yeah,
too.
that's
So.
16, right? Yeah.
Well, go ahead and just give me that 2080. You'll free up some room.
Yeah, I mean, you just send them away. That's cool.
I like that 2080 for Call of Duty, so no, I can't do that, Jason.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Shickle's had his hand up for a while.
Oh gosh, I have. That's weird. Actually, no, I'm fascinated by this, especially with the splitting off on like the Rock Pros with like different drives. But most, well, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of network routers and things like that have USB ports on them as well. So if you also can't afford a separate computing unit, you can probably just plug in through USB a storage unit of whether it even be just like a USB drive, or if you have an actual NAS, you can just plug it right in through USB. You don't always need like a separate computer to host your network storage if budgeting is an issue.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, like things that I self-host, all of our photos get saved locally in a number of places, but there's this thing called Pawigo, which I mentioned a couple times before. And it's not Google Photos, but it's pretty dang decent actually. And once you figure out how to set up website stuff, which is not my thing, it's not a bad solution for browsing your library, and we can basically aggregate all of our data from whether things are like Facebook uploads or Twitter uploads or whatever, because phones store them in weird places. Basically, that all gets synced into a machine and put into a library. And we could browse them all in one place, no matter what service we uploaded them to or took them from. And it's pretty great.
Another cheap entry level option that I actually started with was Western Digital. They make the MyBooks USB discs, but they also make a MyCloud that plugs into a network port that you can actually access from the internet. And I actually put one of those hooked into my router and used that as my file server before I got the Pi set up.
Those are really neat.
Cool. Let's see. I think Nate, probably you're next.
Yeah. So I have I'm not like you, most of you who like the new shiny. I have more like the Millennium Falcon of servers in my house. It's like
Nice.
whatever parts I can scrap together to kind of meet something. So I have an MSI motherboard with an AM3 chipset. So I put the fastest one I could put in there, which is an FX 9590, I think, and the 220 watt TDP. So it keeps my basement nice and warm when I'm pushing it. It's really nice. I like it. I even roast marshmallows over it, on those special occasions. But I threw an extra SATA card in there, 6-port SATA card. So I have 6 2 terabyte spinning Rust drives that are rated in RAID 10, so that I have because it's the Millennium Falcon, so things are just gonna break, and so knowing that I can swap out drives as I need to, and then I did Btrfs so I can grow that array. Then as things start to kind of deteriorate, I can just keep growing it, and so it's been running great. Been using it since November, and no regrets. I really actually hardly push it, honestly, but yeah, I have an MB server on it, and then it does like my file serving in the house. I'm like Martin, and I use SyncThing for everything, and so that if the server does go down, which it might, everything else can talk to each other too to synchronize my files around. So. But yeah, and it's running Tumbleweed on it, so I haven't had any issues yet. And did I say an MB server? I have that going as well.
Yep.
That seems to work pretty well. But I'm going to try out Jellyfin at some point in time, and also do Home Assistant on there. I'm gonna do a Docker image of that, and then I really want to do Nextcloud when I get the time. But I'm gonna have time the next 2 weeks. Not gonna say why, but I'll have lots of time. So I'm excited.
Cool.
Alex, were you going to jump in with something about the photos?
Yeah, a buddy of mine over at Linux Server IO is working on a new Photos app called Filter. I've just put a link in the chat. It's not finished yet. It's pretty new. It's pretty rough, but it works. And
Thanks.
he's a pretty smart kid. So if you like it, put a comment on GitHub, let him know you like it, and give it a whirl. He's quite open to feedback and stuff like that.
Cool.
All right, Big Pod.
Yep.
I host a bunch of stuff on my network. Actually, most of the stuff are hosted on my old desktop. So it's an i5 4th generation, nothing special, with 12 gigs of RAM. On there, I have like 2 instances of GitLab for different stuff, including its CI/CD function so I can automatically build packages for myself. Also on it, I have a SMB, so Samba, Share, and Nextcloud instance. So I have for that from anywhere in the world, really, if I connect myself with VPN, and a VPN server. That's a few of the most important things I host on my network. But I also sometimes use my laptop as a server. So I have VM specifically for this stuff. So basically, as a backup, if either I need a huge job to compute, I just need some load balancing. I can do that.
So when you said CI/CD, you reminded me that the other thing I have running on my server is Git-T. Git-T is like self-hosted GitHub, and that's where I've just got some of my like dot files and a few of my little scripts and stuff I run at home that nobody ever needs to see. So yeah, I use that for my private code stuff.
Did you know
Brilliant.
Git-T, Gitea, Gitty, Git-T? However you say it.
Git-T. Have you seen the logo? It's Git-T.
Git-T, okay.
The letter T or the word T? T-E-A.
Tea, as in cup of tea.
Git-T. You can actually use it to mirror any GitHub or GitLab repository on a. So I think it's a webhook. Whenever somebody pushes to a remote repository, it will then clone that to your local. So if GitHub ever, I don't know, eats everybody's code, then I've got all of my stuff backed up locally.
Yeah, I use Git-T
I
to
use
back
my
up all of the
GitLab instance
Mate
for
desktop
that.
stuff. Sorry, what do you use?
I use my GitLab instance. I use
Right.
GitLab. I have it hosted on my server, so I do all the backups in there.
Yeah, I have a GitLab instance too. It runs on my free NAS, but anyway.
I know it's super silly because these things are like super superficial, but I really like the layout of GitLab in terms of like the web interface. It's
not
been,
bad.
it's
Yeah.
just It feels easier to me to like follow certain releases and look for stuff, and it's probably just that I'm bad at GitHub, but it just seems easier to me, so I really appreciated how they designed that.
Colin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring something up for one of our followers that contacted me via Gmail. His name's Dennis Hallman, and he said, and some people may know him from chat. I've seen him in chat. He's commented on my videos a few times. He's been watching Biddle, been participating in chat, but getting no responses. And when he watches it back, he's not even in chat. So he doesn't know what the problem is, and he's wondering if there's anyone that could help him out that may have experienced this problem whatsoever.
Yes. There are a couple of potential options. One is that YouTube like either people have marked his messages as spam and YouTube is sort of automatically filtering them, or YouTube has potentially decided upon itself that based on either account details or certain wording of comments in the past or just lack of activity and unusual activity, it will oftentimes strip out things from existence, basically. So when he chats in a channel, to him, everything will seem like it's working, but no one else will see it because it's basically, I think it's called a shadow ban.
Yeah, that's what
That's what
Michael's
Chuck's
just put in
saying.
chat.
Yeah.
Well, I see him
Right.
often. I mean, he shows up on my channel. He goes by Dennis Holman, and he goes by
Yep.
Life and Home Linux, and maybe he's changing his name back and forth.
Oh, that's him as well, is it? Life at home.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I
Right.
mean, I see him and I respond to him. I don't know.
He said
Maybe
he's
well,
been having.
is it two separate accounts? So maybe one of his accounts is being shadow banned, the other one's not.
Could be.
Possibly. He's not here tonight because he said he was going to be here. So I don't know.
Interesting.
Huh.
Okay.
All right.
I've got a YouTube channel he can come and chat in if he wants.
I think an old
Good
friend
one
wants to
too.
Yeah, actually, Martin just
Yeah.
made a big jump at his YouTube channel, I think.
I don't even know if I'm subscribed to Martin's channel, to be honest.
Oh,
What, Colin?
Wow. I'm not sure. I'm subscribed.
we
to
need-
it.
I can't believe
know when
this.
to dislike the video.
I can't believe this.
Let me find the ban button. And we'll take
Where's
care of it.
shadow ban?
Shadow ban.
All right, before we move on, there were two guys that still had their hands up, Vash and Jason. So Vash, you wanted to get on the self-hosting, I think, maybe? Vash? Vash. Calling
You're
Vash.
muted, Vash.
Sorry about that.
All right.
So yeah, I've actually been messing around with a lot of container stuff in the past week or so. One thing I've been checking out a little bit is Bookstack. It's like a personal wiki, so I've been messing around with that a little bit.
Cool. Check that out.
If I might point you to self-hosted 15, I think. Chris and I reviewed about 5 or 6 different wiki programs. The one that I settled on for my personal use was TiddlyWiki. I don't know if the thing about wikis is that they're very personal. It's like me telling you what flavor of barbecue sauce you prefer. Right? It's just, it doesn't matter what I like best. And so I came up with a sort of a methodology to try and pick out which wiki wins. And in the end, I came up with like 5 or 6 very small different articles. One was in Markdown, one had an image, one was very link heavy, that kind of stuff, right? And I just fired up 5 or 6 different wikis. I put the same articles into each wiki and just decided which one I liked the best. And I recommend that you just put an afternoon aside and try and do it all at once. And in that way, it kind of reduces the urge to distro hop or wiki hop because you've tried all the options and you know that the grass isn't greener.
Yeah, that's the
I can say
plan.
that-
I haven't used it too much yet.
Cool.
I say TiddlyWiki is something I've been using for going on 8 years now, since even through the version change. And I use it for all my like local note taking. I can't.
It's so great.
It's
It
great
just-
for a personal wiki.
You can. The thing that sold me on TiddlyWiki was I liked to use the tags. I mean, the fuzzy search is brilliant. The second thing was the tags. If I'm writing something about how I set up a specific container. It belongs in the Docker tag. It also belongs in the self-hosted tag. It also belongs, and you get quite often, things belong in more than one category, and a lot of software doesn't allow for that, but TiddlyWiki does. So I just love it.
They're reusable too, so you can actually have things interlinked, and it's really nice. It's like Markdown, really easy to use. It's super handy.
All right, Jason.
Well, I was just going to mention, we were talking about servers and stuff like that. And as you can see behind me, everybody calls us NASA. I do have over here, I have my file server that's always on. The monitors aren't on, but the file server's on. And then we have another Plex server upstairs that we run Plex throughout the house. And we also have it set up so that, family members can, remote into it and use it as well. And I think that has, I want to say 4 or 5 4 terabyte drives set up, NAS drives. There's a software that we use. I forget the name of the software, but it's essentially the same thing that they were talking about earlier, where it makes all the drives one, so that you can, so it's all set up as one drive, so they don't all span and all that good stuff. We have that set up. We have a file share set up so that anybody can drop files back and forth and through the family and stuff like that. So that if we're working on whatever as a family, documents or whatever, just they need a place to store it. They have access to it because we have so much space. Like my computer over here is like 8 hard drives in it. Ranging anywhere from 500 gigs all the way up to 4 terabyte. So it's just a bunch of stuff that we just have running on nonstop in the house. We have it set up so that it pulls down TV shows from YouTube TV, and also a TV tuner card with a HD antenna. So we just pull down all kinds of TV shows, and they automatically stores them and uploads them to Plex, so that it's constantly growing and continues to grow. We have cloud server where we store documents and stuff like that. That because we had a house fire, so we learned the hard way to make sure that you back up everything. That's not physical, not only just physical, because we lost a lot of important stuff when we had that house fire. So, excuse me. So I do recommend that if anybody does have a lot of important documents, don't keep them all in one spot. Get yourself a cloud server, external drives, all that kind of stuff. I get a bunch of everything. What we do is we take an external drive. We have a 4 terabyte drive that we put all our information on, and then we store it in a fireproof safe, and we only bring it out to update. That way, it's always stored so that we have all our important stuff set up so that we don't lose, years and years worth of documents that we may need for whatever purposes.
Yep.
But that's basically what we do in here. My brother and I, between us, we have like 20 computers, so we always have some sort of server up and running.
Well, what do they say? If it's not backed up to 3 different places, it's not backed up?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
That's a good point.
A little hack
that you can successfully recover it. Because if you back it up to 3 places and you can't recover every them, it's still not backed up.
You gotta test it.
Exactly. Yep. Oh yeah, let's get that hard drives and the fireproof safe. Like I said, it comes out. We hook it up, make sure it works, check the documents, battery back it back, reback up anything that's new, not reback up, but back up anything that's new and confirm it's all there. Put it off to this, put it back. Safe.
Yeah.
And it's safe.
A little trick that some people might not know about Google Suite. If you have a domain name, I think you can pay $12 a month to have them host your email and do a bunch of other stuff. But with that comes officially 1 terabyte of cloud storage. However, they don't check if you go over 1 terabyte. And I've had about 3 terabytes worth of stuff backed up there using Duplicati over the last 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And it just
Nice.
$12 a month, and it's fully encrypted, so Google have no idea what's there.
Yeah, I got the upgraded Google Cloud thing as well. I didn't do the terabyte. That was a little excessive because I'm only backing up documents and
This
pictures.
isn't Google Drive, just to be clear. This is G Suite for domain. So Google Drive
I
is
don't have
more
a domain, so-
expensive, but G Suite for domain comes with some Google Drive storage. So it's a favorite over at Data Hoarders, that one. So
And I believe it's
enjoy.
actually per account. So
Mhm.
you have quite, if you pay for 5 accounts, You can.
Well,
It is
okay.
quite
Here's the rule.
expensive, but
Officially, up to 5
those.
users, it's limited to 1 terabyte per user, and after the 5th user, it goes to unlimited for everybody.
Yeah, but it
But they
does
don't
have a
check.
limit. They do have a limit. If you have past 5 years, they do have a limit plus the upload limit.
Wow.
You can
3
check
terabytes
Linus.
has been fine.
Linus Tech
Yeah.
Tips has a great video about that. How they want to put petabyte on their G
Of
Suite,
course he
but
did.
couldn't
Of,
go.
of course he did.
It at some point it just stopped.
All right. Let's see. Prophetic, I think.
Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sorry for being so late, but self-hosting is like a budding passion of mine, so I wanted to chime in real quick. Yeah, the typical stuff with the Nextcloud, Plex, some of those services. But I just wondered, especially Alex, get his take on this. As someone who's like more of a newbie, do you think the networking side of accessing these services, like outside of your home, is probably something that can be done a little better? Because when I heard about Nextcloud, I instantly like fell in love with the concept, but it took years, years of on and off learning, taking a stab at things to figure out the networking part, you know, and keeping security in mind too, to access outside the home. It took a while for me to figure it out, because I was nervous about opening myself up, but also wanting to still tackle this amazing concept of self-hosting some information from there. So that's probably one of my biggest frustrations over the past couple of years, is like all these great services, but then like it's inside my home network. Some of these services are really beneficial when you kind of go outside your home network and you try to brag about it with like friends and family. Look what I can do with Linux for free and X, Y, and Z. It's kind of hard to do that. So I wanted to ask the group, like, you know, how was that learning curve for everybody else? As a newbie, it was like once I figured it out, I felt like it was incredible power, you know, to see that. So just wanted to throw that part out there.
My general ethos is to open as few ports in my firewall as I possibly can. I think I have SSH open, I have port 80 and port 443, and now the WireGuard port. And between those 4, I can get into anything from anywhere remotely. And I'm so pleased that Ubuntu 20.04 has shipped or backported WireGuard into the 5.4 kernel. So I run Nextcloud locally, and I run it through a reverse proxy. An Nginx is the Linux serverlets encrypt image. And the reason I do that is so that I don't have to remember port numbers or anything like that. It's pretty nice. But the upshot is when I connect in from the outside world, well, I'm not going to leave my house right now, but one day, maybe I might in the future, I can just use WireGuard and then route my DNS over WireGuard, and then it's as if I'm on my LAN, no matter where I am in the world. I don't think anybody has any real business exposing Nextcloud, or for that matter, pretty much any other self-hosted app, to the internet without at least some form of basic authentication in front of it, whether that's HTTP through the reverse proxy or whatever. With the most love in the world, these apps are written by probably volunteers, and they're not going to be up to probably the same standard as a Google app or something like that, which have their problems too. So just bear that in mind. Try and be paranoid. Like if you have anything sensitive in there, like in my Nextcloud, for example, I have all scans of my passports and my birth certificates and that kind of stuff. Ain't no way I'm exposing that to the internet, you know?
Yeah, no.
Just in case. Be paranoid and you'll be safe.
Yeah, I personally didn't really care about the security of dropping behind internet because all I did, I opened one port for VPN and that's it. I didn't think much about just VPN, and
Right.
and everything else is somewhat secure and because of that VPN, but cannot be 100% sure. That's the one rule we should all remember, that never you can be 100% sure it's secure.
I know it's getting a little late, So
we really have to.
Yeah,
we
we're
really
we're
have
getting
to.
low on the time here.
We're way past time. It's not a little bit late. It's way past time. We still got to do last words and everything. So, Prophetic does this all the time to us. He always comes in at 9:55 and wants to start this extremely long conversation. So I blame him. But
Sorry.
we are out of time. But everybody gets a last word. Dan Simmons, last word.
All right, thanks for indulging my my topic and all the discussion here. I think thanks to the Ubuntu desktop team as well. Great fun this week, and thanks to you, Rocco, for hosting this great group.
All right. Well, it was an awesome topic. We could probably win another hour on it. Just saying.
That's
Vash,
good.
last word.
Thanks for the stream, and hopefully I can be back next week. We'll see how that goes.
It's good to have you back, brother. Tony.
Yes, it's installed.
He had to wait that couple seconds to let us know.
I think that's because he just finished it. Like,
I think that
he
was. I think
waited to
that's
just
perfect, though.
complete it.
I actually was waiting for you to say, Rocco, to say last word, and you didn't, and I was waiting for that.
I was okay. So I thought you had froze. So
No.
All right.
We'll blame it on your internet. Don't worry about it.
There you go. Just blame everything on
I'll
the
keep it short and sweet because we are running a bit late. Thanks to you for doing this and to everybody that makes this possible. It's been a good show. Take care, everyone, and I hope to be back again and see you all next week.
All right, Tom, last word.
Thank you, Rocco, and thank you, everyone.
All right, Thomas, last word.
Caught me off guard there for a second. Well, thanks for having me again. Glad to see everybody's still healthy. See you next week. Oh, before I go, I have a video coming out Monday. It's on the Drugger OS channel. It's basically just a year-long report, just letting you know like the big stuff we did. If you want to watch it, I'll have it in the Telegram, Discord, links, and on the forum, maybe.
Why don't you put the link for your YouTube channel in chat?
Okay. I rarely post anything, but I will do.
Okay. Aris, last word.
Thank you for the stream. Looking forward to Ubuntu Mate. I'll check out Edgard. I have pie holes, but since Martin mentioned Edgard, I'll check those out. See if I can switch those over.
Dave Jones, last word.
Rocco, Dan, everyone else, thanks for all the hard work that you do for providing this great time we have every Saturday night. It's always a blast. I want to thank Martin and all the people at Canonical for releasing a great product. This, I believe, is the best Ubuntu that's been released in many a year, and I can't wait to talk about Ubuntu Mate next week.
There you go. MC, last word.
Once again, Rocco, thank you for providing this platform for everyone to get together and talk about all this stuff. And Martin and the Ubuntu development team, great job. Keep up the great work. I'm kind of excited to see what happens with 2010 now with your first major release with 2004, seeing what 2010 brings and all the different changes. And to everyone else, thank you guys for all the different suggestions and comments in regards to adding all the research I have to do for AdGuard and Music Brains hosting and all this other stuff that I wrote down that I'm like, hey, I got to check this stuff out now too. So,
Ain't it great? Jason, last word.
As usual, I just want to say thank you for to Rocco and the group and the team that helped make this this whole thing possible. Thank you to the community for great chats tonight, great discussions, and just for being a great community. And you guys have a good night.
All right, Daniel, last word.
Yeah, Rocco, thanks for the stream as usual. Dan for helping out as usual. Martin, pass along the great work on Ubuntu to everybody involved. I think it's awesome. And thanks for all the suggestions out. Now I now have like 25 open tabs in Firefox of stuff I have to look at. So thanks for that. But all really great stuff. Looking forward to Ubuntu Mate, and see y'all next week.
Colin, last word.
Yes, thanks Rock and Co for the stream, and looking forward to trying Ubuntu Mate next week to see how that runs. I have been looking at Ubuntu Chillin as well. That's quite a nice looking desktop, I must say. So they're doing some nice things there as well. But Ubuntu Mate is the flavor of the week, and we'll check it out. Is this a challenge? Do we calling this a challenge?
No, it's not a challenge. It's a suggestion.
Just a try. That's a suggestion. All right. Okay. All right. So I'll make it a challenge.
Okay, you make it a
I'll
challenge.
install it.
Okay. All right, Big Pod, last word.
Next week it's Middle Europe, so 9 p.m. Central European time. I believe, Martin, that means 8 p.m. for you. So remember that. And Tony, this time I beat you. I had Mate installed a day after it was released. And next week, probably the best distro that came out of 2004, Ubuntu Mate.
Kevin.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for showing up and a great conversation. We'll see y'all next week.
Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco and crew. I want to thank everybody at Canonical, and especially the mainline Ubuntu devs for putting out a truly incredible distro. Thank you to Nate for the analog call out, for the suggestion, and see you all next week.
Larry Johnson, last word.
Thank you, Rocco. A great show. I don't think anybody can brag about having Ubuntu Mate installed before Bill or Martin. And I look forward to hearing their impression of Ubuntu Mate next week.
Yep. Bill, last word.
Thank you, Rocco and Dan. Eric, Zeb, we miss you. Thank you to the Ubuntu desktop team, and thank you, Alex, for doing Spotlight. It was really cool. It was really very interesting.
Agreed. Martin, last word.
Thank you all for your feedback and questions and observations about Ubuntu 2004. I hope I was able to answer those candidly, not just for you, but for the other people that will watch this. So hopefully they'll get some value from that as well. And onward and upward next week, eh?
All right, Nate, last word.
Hey, thanks for having all of us, Rocco. It's always fun to hang out, and even if I'm just listening, because things, good times. So look forward to next week. Hopefully, I'll be there for Middle Europe.
Chicken.
So hopefully not to be too self-serving. I made a video today about the shell tiling on Pop! OS, and I tried a new format, and I would love to see what people think of that. Basically, because I have this stupid wide screen, making videos on it is stupid. So I've basically output at 4K, but the lower half of the screen is like two 1080p screens. One's my webcam and one's something else. So if anyone wants to check that out, let me know what you think of the format. It's something new, inspired by Jason Evangelo's weird video trickery. So would love to see what people think of that.
All right, well, that's what the last word's for. So you should put a link to that video in chat. And Adam, last word.
Yeah, I didn't make a video, so don't bother watching anything.
Okay.
Thanks for the show. It's a good time. Good to see everybody here. Martin, you guys did a bang up job on Ubuntu. Good luck, doing better on the next one. And everybody have a good night.
JJ, Dr. Random.
Thanks very much, Rocco, for the stream. Thanks to Martin and all the people at the Ubuntu and all the flavors for all their work that they're doing.
And hope you guys have a great week, and hopefully we can trudge through this world event.
Alex, last word.
Unmute would be helpful. Yeah, thanks for having me on your spotlight this week. That was pretty weird and cool at the same time. Great job to Martin and the Ubuntu team with a great release this week. And obviously related to the self-hosted discussions we've had in this episode, self-hosted.show for all of the self-hosting you can probably handle.
Steve, last word.
Rocco, you still just don't get it. I'm the one supposed to have the messed up streams. But thanks as always for putting this on. Great job on Ubuntu, Martin. I've actually been running it on my testing laptop for the last 3 or 4 days and getting very well used to it. Looking really good in that. And for those that want to be up early in the morning, I will be back on 8 a.m. Central Time for coffee and Linux.
I just got to try to keep you on your toes, Steve, so that you know that the other people can mess up streams too. So,
all right.
Prophetic, last word.
Thanks for having this awesome show. 2 quick things. One, don't tell Dolphin that I installed Ubuntu Mate. It's a secret. That's the first thing.
He won't know. Nobody will know.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks for having this awesome show, and looking forward to next week. And I apologize for always swooping in so late and dropping those questions.
They're always good questions. You should just swoop in a little earlier.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
All right. I would like to thank Martin and the whole Ubuntu team and echo what everybody said here. It was a fantastic release, 2004, the best, in my opinion, that I have tried. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all very much for your kind words. I'll pass them along, as I always do.
All right. Next week is BDLL Europe. So that will be at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. other places like Martin is. And we are going to do 2 shows just like we normally do on BDLL Europe week. So one will be at 3 and one will be at 8. You can join us for either or one. And we're going to definitely talk about Ubuntu Mate and whatever else we decide to come up with. As we said, Alex was on Linux Spotlight this past week. It was a great conversation.
Yes, it was.
You have to go watch this because sometimes I just wanted to say some people didn't know that I put out the audio only RSS feed for Linux Spotlight. So you can just listen to it in your favorite podcast app. But I suggest going and watching this because there were quite a few times where Alex was showing off hardware and everything, and you don't get that feel of this. You don't get the same feel in the audio as you do in the video. So that was excellent. This coming week on Wednesday at 6 a.m., I sit down with Dan Johansson from the Manjaro ARM project, actually, and we get to have a conversation about Manjaro ARM and his journey into Linux and everything else. So check that out. I think I got everything that I was supposed to say. Other than that, we will see you next week as we try out Ubuntu Mate this week. Until then, long live Linux.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye all.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.
See yous.